So, imagine you are playing a video game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Standard setup.
Yeah, exactly. You press the up button, and, your character moves up. You press the action button. They swing a sword.
Right. It's that basic input and output contract.
Exactly. You are in total control. It's this unspoken agreement between the game and the player that, essentially, you are the character.
Which is how basically every game works. Yeah.
Right. But what happens when that character just, suddenly stops obeying your inputs?
Oh, it completely breaks the immersion.
It does. What happens when they literally reach into their own chest, physically rip out the controller, which is your connection to them, and just lock you in a birdcage while they walk out the door?
Yeah, you aren't the hero anymore at that point.
No, you're hostage.
Right.
And welcome to our deep dive.
It really is a terrifying inversion of, like, everything we expect from interactive media.
It is, and it is exactly the kind of mind-bending anomaly we are looking at today. But before I get into all of that, for you listening, I really need to set the scene.
Yeah, we should probably explain where we are.
Definitely, because we are currently broadcasting from a highly, highly bizarre location. Like, if you were to look out the window to your left right now, you would notice this blinding, incandescent orb of plasma taking up literally the entire view.
Which is, in fact, the actual sun.
Yeah, the sun. We are currently floating in space, safely tucked inside our boss, Bugsy NoName's sunny observatory.
Which is located very comfortably close to the actual sun somehow.
Right, just completely defying the laws of standard physics, just so we can bring you this analysis today.
It's an unusual setup, to say the least. But, I mean, it is a very special occasion.
Oh, totally. The network is currently celebrating the massive anniversary of the Big 3 Box Network channel.
Right, which is a huge milestone. And as a result, the entire organization is basically in this state of chaotic productive flux right now.
Yeah, everyone is busy. I mean, Bugsy Prime is currently off-site. He is completely off the grid doing his own major investigation elsewhere.
Which left the observatory pretty open for us.
Exactly. Meanwhile, our boss, Bugsy NoName, is just intensely busy right now.
Yeah, he is completely locked away in the editing bay.
Right, working on this massive supercut of various videos. He is entirely distracted.
Which means we have successfully snuck into his office.
We did, and we are currently standing right in front of his Deltarune evidence board.
Which he officially calls the Deltarune Grand Investigation Dossier, the Master Board.
Which is a very intense title, but looking at it, I have to be honest with you, it is mostly unfinished.
Yeah, there are a lot of blank spaces, question marks all over the place.
Right, just random strings leading to absolutely nowhere. But let me tell you, there is still some serious meat on its bones.
There is an astonishing amount of raw data pinned up here.
There really is. And we figured, since we haven't done an exploration with actual substantial meat on its bones in a minute, this would just be the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, we want to give you a sneak peek at this board before Bugsy returns.
Exactly. And definitely wait for Bugsy NoName's video somewhere in the near future. He is going to break this all down perfectly. But for now, I mean, we have the room to ourselves.
And we have a very clear mission today, because this board is a massive multi-volume case file breaking down chapters 1 through 5 of the game Deltarune.
It is huge. I mean, there are timelines, there are color-coded strings.
System maps, psychological profiles, yeah. It is overwhelming.
Very. So our goal is to help you navigate this giant web of canon facts, observed patterns, and community theories without just getting totally lost in the noise.
Right. We need to separate what the game actually does under the surface from, the endless ocean of fan speculation.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we all know the standard Deltarune prophecy, right?
Yeah, the 3 heroes sealing dark fountains, stopping the apocalyptic event known as the Roaring.
Exactly. We don't need to retread that basic RPG setup. What Bugsy's board does here is completely ignore that surface-level narrative.
Right. It bypasses all of that to focus on the game's core dissonance.
Right, which is the fact that the Red Soul, the thing you control, is an entirely separate entity from the protagonist, Chris.
What's fascinating here is how the creator, Toby Fox, weaponizes a mechanic that players basically take for granted.
Oh, completely. We just assume we are the character.
Exactly. He explicitly separates the player from the avatar. He turns a totally standard RPG mechanic, just controlling a character, into what is essentially a hostile takeover of a teenager's autonomy.
It's so creepy when you think about it like that.
It is.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't just imply this, it gives us undeniable mechanical proof of it.
Yeah, the terrifying independent actions. The board has this whole cluster of photos and notes just dedicated to this one thing.
Right, the bathroom sequences.
Yeah, where Chris literally physically reaches into their own chest, removes the red soul, which again represents us, the player, and then they just continue to function without it.
And it's not just a cutscene where they, look at the soul and put it back.
No. They walk around, they survive, they actively plug the sink, they turn on the TV, and they even create a dark fountain while the soul, well, we are just trapped in a birdcage or a cabinet.
Unable to do anything but watch them?
It is so unsettling.
Well, let's look at the mechanics of those moments, because Bugsy has notes on this. When the soul is removed, Chris's movements become entirely different.
Yeah, they get all stiff and weird.
Exactly. They are shambling, almost zombie-like. It suggests that while they can survive without the soul, the separation is, violently unnatural or even painful.
Oh, for sure. It looks like it hurts.
Yet they willingly endure that pain just to escape the player's control, even if it's only temporarily.
Wow. Yeah, that completely shatters the illusion of the main story.
It really does. The player and Chris are two completely separate entities existing in this forced, non-consensual relationship.
Right. And this changes how we have to view the other characters in the party, too.
Definitely. Look at Ralsei and Susie. Bugsy's board has them pinned on opposite ends of a spectrum here.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. The notes categorize Ralsei almost like a meta-aware system interpreter.
The evidence for that is really compelling, honestly. Ralsei knows things he simply shouldn't know.
Like what?
Well, he knows the granular, metatextual details of the game's mechanics. He literally tells the player how to use the UI.
Right, the tutorial stuff. But a lot of games do that, don't they?
They do, but it goes deeper here. More concerningly, he appears in every Dark World as this persistent guide entity, and he actively withholds information.
Oh, like when the camera cuts away?
Exactly. When the narrative splits and the player's perspective shifts away from Chris, Ralsei seems to know that we aren't looking.
That is so true.
He uses those specific moments to have unobserved conversations with Chris. He acts like a piece of the game's software trying to enforce the rules and keep the player on a very specific pre-written path.
Wait. I have to push back on that. Are you seriously telling me this fluffy prince, the guy who bakes cakes and heals the party, is actually some malicious piece of enforcement software?
Well, I wouldn't use the word villain for him.
Because that seems like a massive leap to make him the bad guy.
Right, and the board doesn't label him as malicious either. It labels him as systemic.
Systemic. Okay, what does that mean in this context?
Think about a tutorial guide in any standard software program. Its job isn't to be evil, right? Its job is just to ensure the user operates the program correctly.
Okay, I follow that.
Ralsei's absolute devotion to the prophecy, even to the point of ignoring the emotional reality of the situations around him, it heavily mirrors a program executing code. He just wants the game played the right way.
Okay, I can see that. Especially when you compare him to Susie on the other side of this board.
Right, the contrast is huge.
Bugsy calls her the emotional anchor. Like she represents the natural character growth in the story.
Exactly. She starts out hostile. She actively rebels against the player's inputs early on in Chapter 1.
Yeah, you literally can't control her at first. But then she becomes a hero and forms this really strong organic bond with Chris.
Right. She feels like a real person reacting to a very bizarre situation.
Precisely. Susie is reacting to the world, but Ralsei is reacting to the player.
That distinction makes playing as Chris feel so incredibly isolating when you really think about it.
It really does. I keep trying to wrap my head around it. It's not like playing chess where you know you're just moving pieces from above.
No, it's far more intimate than that.
It's more like, imagine you're driving a car. You're gripping the steering wheel, navigating the turns. You feel totally in control.
Right.
But then suddenly the steering wheel just detaches in your hands. But the car just keeps driving.
That is a terrifying thought.
Right. It accelerates. It turns down dark alley. It drives itself to a completely different destination. And you are just trapped in the driver's seat holding this useless piece of plastic.
That is exactly what playing as Chris feels like during those independent cutscenes.
But that raises a massive, massive question. If Chris can survive without the red soul, and the soul is us who did the red soul originally belong to, are we basically a parasite?
That is actually one of the highest priority questions on Bugsy's master question wall over there.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, under the core identity priority, Bugsy explicitly asks, who truly owns the red soul? And why can Chris remove it?
Because they shouldn't be able to just rip their own soul out.
Exactly. And if Chris is taking independent action, specifically creating dark fountains entirely independently, we have to look at the knight system on the board,
Right. The knight, the established boogeyman of the entire game.
the main antagonist, supposedly.
Yeah, the knight is this unseen entity sneaking around creating all these dark fountains, which drives the entire plot and, threatens to cause the roaring.
Right, we're supposed to be hunting them down.
But Chris also creates a dark fountain at the end of Chapter 2.
Yes. The board points out this massive hidden instability in the narrative logic right there.
It's a huge contradiction.
If the knight creates fountains and Chris creates a fountain, is Chris aligned with the knight? Or is Chris just mimicking the knight's actions for some other reason?
Or, and this is a genuinely terrifying thought, is Chris just cutting their own strings to build a new stage?
What do you mean by that?
Like, if they create a dark fountain in their own living room, they are forcing the narrative to happen on their own terms, not the terms dictated by the player, or Ralsei, or the prophecy.
That makes a lot of sense. Reclaiming their agency by forcing the game into a new state.
Exactly. But if the main story is all about playing by the rules of this rigid prophecy, we need to look at what happens when the player decides to utterly and completely shatter those rules.
Yes, and there is a whole section of the board entirely dedicated to this massive deviation.
You're referring to the Side B investigation, right?
Yes. Now, the community usually calls this the weird route, or the snow grave route.
Right, because of what happens in it.
But Bugsy's board highlights a really crucial confirmed fact straight from the game's actual code.
Which is?
Side B is the internal code name for this route, and it has been present in the game's architecture since Chapter 2.
That is a staggering detail. Like, it proves that this alternate reality, this horrific deviation from the hero's journey, wasn't just some afterthought or a glitch players found.
No, it was entirely intentional.
It was baked into the architecture from the very beginning. Toby Fox specifically designed this nightmare.
He did. And if we trace the timeline of this Side B path across the chapters, the architectural precision becomes even more apparent.
Okay, lay out the timeline for me.
Well, it starts in Chapter 2. The player manipulates Noelle, timid classmate. You force her to freeze her enemies, systematically breaking down her moral barriers.
Right, you essentially turn her into a weapon.
Exactly. And it escalates to the Snowgrave event, where she alters another character's fate entirely, seemingly permanently.
It's so dark.
It is. But then, according to the board, the Side B state persists silently through Chapters 3 and 4.
Silently. Meaning what exactly?
Meaning you don't see massive violent explosions or drastic changes on the surface, but the internal flags of the game's code are constantly tracking that you are on this route.
The code analysis here on the board is wild. The dossier specifically lists flag 916 and flag 1743.
Those internal flags are fascinating from a systems perspective. Flag 916 tracks the failure or abandonment of the weird route.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Just think about how other games handle morality systems, right?
The classic good versus evil sliders.
Let's say you're playing Mass Effect, or even the original Undertale. If you start going down an evil path, but halfway through you decide to spare someone, what happens?
The game usually just boots you back into the standard neutral or good narrative.
Exactly. It treats your moment of mercy as a correction. You're back on the normal track. But Deltarune does not do that.
No, it definitely does not.
If you start manipulating Noelle, but then you stop, maybe you feel bad, maybe you just mess up the specific sequence required, flag 916 remembers that.
It logs your failure to complete the manipulation.
Right. And flag 1743 triggers an alternate cutscene specifically because you abandoned the route. Why does the game permanently remember if you fail to be evil?
It's a great question.
It's like a judge noting that you tried to rob a bank, but you got cold feet at the vault door. You didn't steal the money, but the game says, hey, I know you had the intent. You're still guilty.
It completely reframes the whole concept of choice in video games.
It really does. So, is Side B punishing the player for losing their nerve? Or is it doing something deeper?
Well, the game isn't just judging your actions, it's judging your agency. If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to look at Noelle's psychological profile.
Which Bugsy has painstakingly detailed with these behavioral charts over here.
Yes, the before and after of Noelle is honestly chilling.
Have you ever known someone who is just constantly apologizing for their own existence?
Oh, definitely. People who are just terrified of taking up space.
That is Noelle at the start of the game.
Exactly. Before Side B, she is quiet, she's hesitant, she follows others, she is easily frightened, she basically craves safety and direction.
Right.
But under the player's influence during the Side B progression, that psychology is violently inverted.
She changes completely.
She becomes decisive. She executes the fatal Snowgrave command, which establishes this terrifying dependency on the player's voice telling her what to do.
She listens to us instead of Chris.
Right. But then, as the route persists into later chapters, she becomes disturbingly confident.
It's like a computer virus. Think about it. We start as the user. Noelle is the program we are running, forcing her to execute commands she wasn't designed for.
That's a really good way to frame it.
But halfway through, the program adapts. It gains admin privileges, and suddenly it starts locking us out of our own operating system.
Which perfectly leads to the core thesis of Bugsy's board regarding this specific route.
Which is?
Side B is not just a bad moral route where you play the villain. It is a control inversion system.
A control inversion system. Let's trace that control hierarchy because the dossier maps it out perfectly here.
Yes, let's look at the flowchart.
In the early game, the normal story, the hierarchy is strictly top-down. The player controls Chris, and Chris interacts with the world and the party.
That is the standard RPG model. But then, in the mid-game of Side B, that hierarchy shifts laterally.
Right. The player uses Chris as a conduit to control Noelle.
We become this malicious puppeteer hiding behind Chris's face to break Noelle down.
But then we hit late Side B, the end of this control inversion system, and the hierarchy completely flips.
Noelle overrides the player.
Yes, she stops waiting for inputs entirely, and the player is pushed straight to the bottom, effectively losing agency over the narrative they tried to corrupt in the first place.
And the absolute breaking point of this, the moment where the game physically wrestles the controller out of your hands, happens in a highly specific, deceptively tranquil location in Chapter 5.
The lake.
Yes, the lake investigation section of the board right here.
Mhm.
This is where the Side B timeline erupts into open rebellion against the player.
It's such an intense scene.
In Chapter 5, Side B, Noelle intentionally leads Chris to the lake. The board notes this is a highly conscious decision on her part. She is no longer following anyone. She is the narrative driver now.
I really want to focus on how unsettling this scene is visually.
The UI changes, right?
Yeah. Usually when a character talks in this game, you see their character portrait. You know, a little box showing their face and expressions. It grounds the conversation.
It gives you a read on their emotions.
Right. But during this lake scene, Noelle's character portrait is completely hidden by a blank white overlay. It completely conceals her true state and her expression.
You have absolutely no idea what she's feeling.
None. And Bugsy's notes point out that if data miners actually remove that overlay in the game files, her sprite appears deeply unsettling.
Though the board does objectively know that could just be a lighting artifact left by the developers.
True, but regardless of that, the intent of the final game is to hide her from us. We are literally no longer allowed to read her.
And that visual obstruction pairs with a complete, terrifying mechanical breakdown.
Oh, this is the craziest part.
During this sequence, the player is presented with dialogue options. Specifically, you can repeatedly select the command stop.
The game is literally giving you the button to hit the brakes.
You are telling the game, I want to stop this, I want to turn around, this has gone way too far.
And the game flat out ignores you. It actively mocks your input.
She just keeps going.
Noelle talks right over you, forcing the proceed command forward herself.
It's brilliant game design, honestly.
It is, and I want everyone listening to think about that. Have you ever been in a situation, a conversation, a relationship, a job where you realize you had absolutely no power to stop what was happening?
Where you felt like a completely helpless passenger in your own life.
Yes. That is the exact psychological state the game is exploiting here. It reduces the player from a proactive godlike entity dictating morality to a reactive, helpless spectator trapped in a nightmare that they started.
And the culmination of this sequence is narratively unprecedented in the game.
What happens next?
Chris and Noelle disappear into the water. They just vanish from the normal program flow of the game.
Yeah.
And then the game triggers a massive non-linear jump.
Oh, right, the title card.
Bold text just appears on the screen. Insert Chapter 7, Side B.
Just skipping Chapter 6 entirely.
Completely bypassed.
I cannot emphasize enough how insane that is for a video game to do. It's like a character in a movie looking directly into the camera, ripping the script out of the director's hands, walking off the set and yelling, "Cut to the sequel!"
That is a perfect analogy for the scale of this narrative breach.
She's not just breaking the fourth wall, she's hijacking the entire production.
But to understand why she does this, we have to look at the dialogue analysis board for this Chapter 5 Lake monologue.
Let's do it.
Because the themes of her dialogue completely upend our assumptions about what a corrupted character sounds like.
Yeah, you'd think she'd be acting like a standard brainwashed villain, right?
Correct.
Monologuing about ultimate power or revenge or destroying the town.
But she isn't doing any of that. She actually expresses gratitude to Chris.
She thanks them. In the midst of this horrific, rule-breaking rout, she describes a profound, suffocating feeling of being trapped.
She talks about living an ordinary, mundane life, just going through the motions, acting out the role of the good girl rather than truly living.
And she expresses this deep, desperate desire to leave the town, to break out of her assigned role, to do something utterly impossible.
We really have to sit with that for a second. The psychological reframing here is brilliant, and it's deeply tragic.
Because Noelle's motivation in Side B isn't malice at all. It is escape.
To the player, Side B is a horror route where we do terrible things.
Yeah.
But to Noelle, Side D represents freedom.
The board notes that this reframes a villain route into a story of tragic liberation.
She would rather be a monster who makes her own choices than a saint trapped in a cage.
Which makes me ask, does Noelle actually trust Chris in this moment at the lake? Or does she mistakenly trust us, the player?
That's a vital distinction.
Like, does she think we, the anomaly forcing her to freeze people, are the real Chris finally giving her the courage to break the rules?
And that's the tragedy of her character right there. She is highly likely confusing the malicious control of the player with a sudden burst of rebellious confidence from her childhood friend.
Oh, that hurts to think about.
She is following the anomaly, truly believing it to be salvation. But what does the lake actually represent in this escape?
Right. Why water?
The Master Question Wall asks several things about this. Is the lake a metaphysical boundary, a transition to another layer of reality? Why water as the final transition?
Water is often symbolic of rebirth, right? Or crossing into the underworld.
Exactly. And what exactly is Chapter 7 Side B if Chapter 6 is completely bypassed? Does Chapter 6 represent the normal world that she has now entirely rejected?
It's like she found a back door in the universe's code and just drowned herself in it to get to the other side.
It's a very visceral way to put it, but accurate mechanically.
But this lake sequence, this overwhelming desire to escape, it is deeply tied to childhood memories for her.
Yes, she brings up the past specifically.
She talks about standing at that exact lake with Chris when they were younger, wondering what was beyond it. And according to Bugsy's board, the root of Noelle's trauma, the absolute core reason she feels so trapped and helpless in the first place, connects to a character who isn't even in the game.
Yes. To understand her desperation at the lake, we have to look at the massive void in her life. We need to pivot to the character investigation section.
Over on the right panel.
Yes. Specifically, the master board dedicated to Des.
Des, the central, gaping black hole of the entire Deltarune narrative.
Des's absence is a confirmed fact with a 5-star confidence rating on Bugsy's board here.
She is Noelle's older sister.
Yes, and she has never appeared on screen. Yet she is frequently referenced, deeply important to the history of the town, and her disappearance is the defining gravitational event in Noelle's life.
It's what makes her feel so trapped and heavily monitored by her family.
Toby Fox has hidden her appearance entirely. We don't know what she looks like, we don't know where she is.
We don't even know for sure if she's dead or just, lost.
We just know she is gone. And her absence shapes the entire town's dynamic. It's the trauma that everyone dances around.
But while Des is the great missing narrative piece of the lore, the board highlights another major anomaly running parallel to the game.
Something totally fringe, incredibly cryptic, yet mechanically consistent.
The egg system.
Yes.
The eggs.
I honestly cannot believe we are pivoting from childhood trauma to poultry, but here we are.
It sounds absurd, I know, but the data is meticulously charted. Let's look at the timeline.
Okay, lay it out.
In every single chapter, from Chapter 1 through Chapter 5, there is exactly one hidden egg event.
And I really want to clarify for the listener, you really have to go out of your way to find them.
You can't just stumble upon them normally.
No, you have to transition between specific rooms back and forth until the game's code literally glitches and drops you into a room that shouldn't exist.
A space between spaces, basically.
Exactly. They are completely disconnected from the main story path. And in each of these hidden rooms, standing behind a tree, you meet a figure fans call the Eggman. The Eggman is documented on the board as a mysterious figure who exhibits very specific, repeated behavior.
Right. He appears in a hidden location. He interacts calmly with Chris. He gives Chris exactly one egg. He never attacks. And then he simply vanishes.
There's no combat, no grand monologue. Furthermore, The board notes a specific narrative cutoff.
Oh, right. The encounters stop completely after Chapter 5.
Yes. There is no egg in Chapter 6 or 7.
But the craziest part, the absolute ultimate rule break of this entire system, is what happens after you get the egg.
Mechanically speaking.
Right, let's talk about how the game's code handles inventory. In Deltarune, you travel between the light world, which is the normal town, and the dark world, the magical fantasy realm.
Correct.
When you bring an item from the dark world back to the real world, the code changes its state. A magical sword turns back into a pencil, a healing potion turns into a piece of candy.
It enforces the rule that the fantasy world is just ordinary objects brought to life.
Exactly. But the eggs...
The eggs bypass this fundamental rule entirely. They persist into the light world as actual, literal eggs.
You can put them in Kreese's fridge.
You can.
It defies the established mechanics of reality. It's a persistent coding anomaly. Just imagine you're playing Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
You dive into a dungeon and you find this glowing, ethereal, magical sword.
Okay.
And then you turn off your console, you walk into your real-life kitchen to get a glass of water, and that glowing, magical sword is just sitting on your physical kitchen counter.
That would be terrifying.
It shouldn't exist in the light world. It breaks the fundamental rules of what is real. Why exactly 5 eggs? And why does this mysterious Eggman only interact with Chris?
Well, to answer that, we have to look at the community and working theories section of the board over here.
The red string zone.
Exactly. And I want to be very clear to you, the listener, as the board is. These are unconfirmed fan theories mapped by Bugsy.
Right. These are not endorsed canon facts, but attempts to explain the mechanisms we just described.
Right. Bugsy has these clearly walled off. We are entering speculation territory now. Let's start with Des.
Okay, theory 1.
Theory 1 on the board suggests that Des is human.
Wait, how do they arrive at that? The whole family are reindeer monsters. Noelle has antlers. Why would her sister be human?
The theory is built on negative space, mostly. The evidence cited here is her hidden appearance and the highly unusual secrecy surrounding her past.
Okay, I guess that makes some sense.
Furthermore, naming conventions in the game sometimes separate humans and monsters. But the sub-theory to this is where it gets highly volatile.
Oh boy.
It proposes that the red soul we control, the anomaly piloting Chris, actually belongs to Des.
Oh, wow.
If the soul belongs to a missing human sister, it would completely explain why Chris can physically remove it without dying immediately.
And why it functions independently.
Exactly. It is a foreign organ.
That is deeply messed up. If that theory holds true, we are piloting Chris using the literal life force of their childhood friend's missing sister.
It recontextualizes everything.
We are essentially haunting them. That turns the entire game into a ghost story.
It does.
Okay, what about the Eggman, who is handing out reality-defying poultry in the dark?
Theory 2 posits that the Eggman is Chris's former therapist.
Wait, a therapist. Not a god or a dimension hopper, but a literal mental health professional.
Look at the supporting evidence the community has gathered, which the board notes right here.
Okay.
The encounters are completely non-hostile in a game full of enemies. The interaction is calm. The Eggman often asks strangely personal or reflective questions in these hidden rooms.
That is true. It's a very weird vibe.
And the fact that Chris is exclusively the recipient of the eggs implies a prior personal relationship.
But why eggs?
Well, the items themselves, the eggs might not literally be eggs, but symbolic keys or coping mechanisms manifesting physically.
Wow.
Another theory adjacent to this suggests the Eggman is preparing Chris for the endgame, providing these rule-breaking items to help them survive a reality collapse.
It's all so incredibly fringe, but, like, you can see the logic. You have the knight threatening the world with an apocalypse. You have Side B completely breaking the game's control systems and forcing a hostage situation.
You have a missing sister creating a black hole of trauma.
And you have a guy in the shadows handing out reality-defying eggs. Des, the eggs, the knight, Side B, they all feel like completely disparate puzzle pieces.
They do?
It's like dumping 4 different jigsaw puzzles onto a table and trying to make one picture.
They appear disparate on the surface, but they aren't. Because Bugsy's masterboard features a man-life synthesis section right over here.
Oh, the big map in the middle.
Right in the center of that is a literal connection map.
And that map reveals that all of these disparate systems share a single central hub. All roads, all anomalies lead back to Chris.
Let's detail this global connection map because it is the linchpin of the entire investigation. Chris is the only constant across every single system identified on this board.
Let's run down the list and look at the evidence, the core system, right?
Yes, Chris is the one who physically reaches into their chest and removes the red soul, defying the player's control.
The night system. Chris is explicitly shown creating a dark fountain in their living room, mimicking the main antagonist that the prophecy says they're supposed to defeat.
The egg mystery. Chris is the exclusive, singular recipient of all 5 reality-breaking eggs. The Eggman won't appear for anyone else.
And finally, the side B and death mystery. Chris is the anchor for Noelle's actions. They are the person she remembers the lake with. They are the conduit the player uses to corrupt her.
And they are the catalyst for her eventually breaking free. Chris is at the dead center of every single web. This raises an important question, which Bugsy has highlighted in bright yellow at the top of the master question board.
What's the question?
Is Chris actually the protagonist of this story, or is Chris simply the biological convergence point where multiple realities, timelines, and cosmic systems crash into each other?
That is a staggering way to look at a main character. They aren't a hero, they are ground zero.
Consider the brutal contrast of their existence. On one hand, Chris has an agonizing, almost total lack of control.
Right. They are literally puppeteered by the player.
Forced to speak words they don't mean, make friends they might not want, and fight battles they didn't choose. They are a vessel for a foreign entity operating their body.
But on the other hand,
Chris is the literal center of the universe. Every major mystery, the prophecy, the red soul, side B, Des, the Eggman, requires Chris to function. The universe orbits around them.
it is the ultimate paradox of the game. The most important character in the entire universe, the one person everything hinges on, has the absolute least free will.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us, the people holding the controller?
That's the real core of it, isn't it?
Yeah. When you step back from the red string, the post-it notes, and the code flags on Bugsy's masterboard, you realize something profound. Deltarune isn't just a fantasy story about kids sealing magical fountains and fighting monsters.
Not at all.
It's an architectural investigation into agency.
It is a game interrogating the very nature of control. It asks what it means to lead, what it means to follow, and what happens when the puppet decides it hates the strings.
Exactly. And it asks you, the listener, to deeply consider your own role in it. We boot up the game assuming we are the savior.
But are we?
Right? Are we the player controlling the red soul, really the heroes saving the world? Or are we the anomaly? Are we the intrusive, destructive force that characters like Chris and Noelle are desperately trying to escape?
It completely flips the narrative alignment. We assume we are fixing the world, but we might be the virus infecting it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to one final, deeply unsettling thought. If Side B is ultimately about the player losing control to a character seeking freedom,
Right.
and the main story is about the player following a rigid, predestined prophecy, it leaves us with an unresolved thread from the board's highest priority questions.
Let's hear it.
If the weird route is a trap of our own making, and the normal route is just us doing exactly what we are told who wrote the prophecy, are the heroes just as trapped in the normal route as Noelle is before Side B? Are they just playing out a script dictated by a different, unseen author, entirely under the illusion that they are saving the world?
That is a very heavy thought to chew on. Are you ever really free if you're just following the path laid out for you, even if it's the good path?
If you're doing what you're told, are you making a choice, or are you just executing code?
Well, we definitely need to wrap up this deep dive and step away from this evidence board immediately.
Yes, I believe I hear movement near the editing bay.
Yeah, Bugsy NoName is going to finish his supercut video editing any minute now, and if he catches us snooping around his master case file in the Sunny Observatory, we're going to be floating outside the ship without spacesuits.
We definitely don't want that.
So definitely keep your eyes peeled for Bugsy NoName's upcoming video in the near future. He's going to break this all down in a way only he can.
It will be worth the wait.
Thank you so much for joining us out here in space for this exploration. Keep questioning the path you're on. Look out for anyone handing you eggs in an alleyway. And remember, sometimes the steering wheel isn't attached to anything at all.